This issue, called Hell Hath No Fury, tells a few different tales. The main stories feature Kitty Pryde trying to save Colossus and the X-Men exchanging blows with the Brotherhood, but we're also treated to a hint of Morlock intrigue and some family dynamics between Rogue, Mystique, and Professor X. It's a simple, fairly self-contained issue that gives its characters loads of personality and room for readers to get to know them even deeper. There's lots of exciting action with some great power panels and compelling storytelling with a few twists and surprises that keep the momentum going right up to the very last page. Of course, it's the 80s era of comics, so there are bloated yellow boxes full of exposition and thought bubbles of characters outlining their every move, but that was 80s comics, and I, for one, really enjoy wordiness, so I'm not going to hate on it. I like a lot in this comic, but what I like most is that the stakes are very clear. Colossus's life is in danger, and Kitty must find a way to save him. The Brotherhood is attacking, and the X-Men must fend them off. It's clean storytelling that proves a simple plot, when told with flair, can be compelling enough for its readers. It's not an intergalactic battle for the universe with complex alien beings and godlike consequences. Looking at you, Phoenix Saga. I'm here for those outlandish tales as well, but I'm also a fan of simple narratives with down-to-earth energy. This issue takes place during a time when the Brotherhood was seen as a serious threat in the X-Men's lives. I appreciate that they are portrayed with formidable power here and that they actually give the heroes a run for their money. Too often these days can the X-Men easily thwart a threat, so it's nice seeing them have to scramble a bit. Blob threatening to snap Nightcrawler and Amanda's necks in particular is just like, holy sh**. So the threat of the Brotherhood feels real and visceral to me, and like they aren't a bunch of jobbers the X-Men could whoop any day of the week. There are also nice little seeds planted of future storylines, like Destiny stopping Pyro from hurting Nightcrawler, and even Sunder's moment of compassion for humanity. They don't add a ton of value to this story directly, but we get payoffs much later that make the entire journey that much more satisfying. I'm also a fan of when the comics in the Marvel line have a simultaneous storytelling to them. Like when Kitty calls the Fantastic Four, they can't answer because in current issues of the Fantastic Four, they're off planet or something. Yeah, maybe it's a pseudo-marketing tactic, but I still appreciate the time spent weaving these wicked webs. 80s X-Men is a masterclass in capturing character voice, and this issue does it so well. Here are some particular standouts for me.
Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde is front and center for a lot of the story, and she really commits to her role as ingenue of the team. She suffers from a crisis of confidence, feeling incapable of helping Colossus all by herself, but in true Kitty Pryde fashion, she shakes off the self-esteem issues and takes action as needed. Kitty is a very stubborn character these days and back then. Whether you agree she should have been on the main X-Men team or not during this period, given her age and inexperience, she definitely pulls her weight in creative ways when the cards are stacked against her. In this particular instance, it's due to her brainy subscription to Scientific American that shakes off her tears and invigorates her spirit into action. +1 for the Geek Squad. Even though there are multiple barriers working against Kitty in this issue, first herself, then the Fantastic Four's absence, and then even geographic proximity, she finds clever ways to bypass all of them. Now, Kitty has never been the most self-possessed character. I actually find her very annoying more often than not. She throws tantrums and cries a lot and worries. I think it's meant to be the relatable aspect of her character, a young, inexperienced teenager thrown into the scary world of superheroics, and from that viewpoint I totally get it. I'd be crying too if people were hunting me down all the time. I've seen people criticize the character in retrospect as coming across as entitled and privileged in this era, and I don't think that's too far off the mark. In any case, whatever your opinion of Kitty's personality, there's no denying her ingenuity in this issue. She composes herself, hijacks a taxicab, while still paying the fare, mind you, breaks into the Fantastic Four's headquarters, makes it past that meddlesome robot receptionist of theirs, all in pursuit of the one device she believes may help save Colossus. Of course, it appears as though she doesn't survive long enough to actually give it a go, but we know comics better than to accept a death threat as sincere. Overall, I thought the writing was excellent in portraying Kitty as the young, insecure, but capable X-Man she is.
Storm.
Storm continues to embrace her edginess in this issue. She's recently made the dramatic fashion choice to her punk leather mohawk look, and her actions are starting to follow suit. She flies at high-speed velocity around Wolverine in their Danger Room session, taunting him to catch her. Even though he manages to slice her cape, she decides next time she'll fly even faster, putting her own bodily safety at even greater risk. She's embracing her own attitudinal shift at her changes and doesn't give a damn who objects. These rebel years really gave Storm some depth to the wild goddess we'd seen before and helped us see a different side to an X-leader that hadn't been explored.
The Blob.
I do not like the Blob. I think he's annoying and gross and belligerent, but that's the Blob. They write him extremely well. He's vulgar and ruthless and brash and totally uncouth. He speaks with terribly sloppy English, as most villains did back then, but I think in his case, it's particularly meant to mirror his mutant power and choice of career path. And even though I'm bashing him, I've gotta admit, it's totally Blob. I wouldn't say I love to hate him, I more so just straight up hate him, but the writers give the character a clear voice that sends me cringing anytime he talks. A job well done.
Professor X, Rogue, Mystique.
The crux of this issue is really an emotional one, and it happens during the twist, when it's revealed that Mystique is at the mansion looking to take out Professor X for recruiting Rogue. It's a philosophical throwdown between these three characters, and it gives Rogue and Mystique at least a semblance of closure since her split from the Brotherhood. And if not closure, then maybe, hopefully, some understanding on where the other is coming from. The story paints a very empathetic portrait of the Professor. He's communicating with the team telepathically about the Brotherhood's resurgence, sending Storm and Wolverine to help out, but he keeps the details secret and away from Rogue. He's a concerned mentor, both because he's a bit wary of her allegiance at this point, but also because he legitimately worries about the toll having to choose sides would take on her mental health. Super awkward to have to do battle against a team you were with for a long time so soon after you unceremoniously ditched them. Both Professor X and Mystique think they are better equipped than the other to help Rogue deal with her powers, and really Rogue is just stuck in the middle here. She of course chooses Xavier, which is heartbreaking for Mystique, her adoptive mother, but it's the most logical reason. Mystique has been unable to help Rogue gain any control to date, and since control is number one on Rogue's priority list, why wouldn't she try something new? What I like about the exchange between these three in the issue is that it entertains the concept of Mystique being a sympathetic character. Yes, she's certainly a terrorist by this point, but from her perspective, she's also a wronged mother who is just doing anything in her power to get her daughter back. Sure, the extreme means of assassinating Professor X isn't going to win her any pity points, but as the title of this issue portends, hell hath no fury like a woman, or mother, scorned. Rogue does a great job of underscoring the emotional dilemma here. She loves Mystique, but needs more than Mystique can offer her. It's a choice that comes with consequences as well as heartbreak. At the end of the day, I truly believe that Mystique and Professor X both have what they believe to be the best possible intentions for Rogue and her journey. But regardless of who Rogue chooses to stay with, she's inevitably going to be a pawn in somebody's greater game.
Morlocks, Sefton, Roberta.
I'm a big fan of secondary characters. I once made a website in the 90s dedicated strictly to celebrating them, and my interest has not waned since. Seeing Sefton fighting with the X-Men front and center was absolutely fantastic. Watching her mystical power in action gives the battle panels an extra pop, although she was a little bit uncharacteristically bloodthirsty toward the end of the issue, but I guess it might just run in the family. The Morlocks are always a treat to see. They are usually troublemakers, never on a grand scale, but enough to be a thorn in the X-Men's side. Their minor appearance in this issue ties into Marvel's overall war on street drugs PSA of the 80s. The writing fairly graphically hints that the runaway they found OD'd on heroin. I like that they don't hold back on making readers uncomfortable. I don't really think mature concepts necessarily should be distilled when they're relevant. The Morlocks are of course an extremely accessible group to be associated with the concept of street drugs, so the exchange between them and the dead runaway feels extremely organic and creepy. I'd be remiss not to mention one of my favorite cameos in this issue, Roberta, the Fantastic Four's robot receptionist. Void of any personality beyond the inputted programming to do her job exceptionally well, she is Kitty's main foil in this issue and is hinted to be the catalyst of Kitty's supposed doom at the end. I think Roberta is simply fantastic and so well dressed for the job.
Fashion.
Speaking of fashion, 80s X-Men was rife with it. Unfortunately, in this issue, there's not much to behold, save for some marvelous continuity of Storm's tattered cape from when Wolverine sliced it earlier in the Danger Room. I think the fraying edges are also supposed to be metaphorical of Storm's own new edgy outlook in life, but maybe I'm reading too much into it. Regrettably, I must call out Amanda Sefton for wearing one of the dowdiest pieces I've ever seen. Worst of all is that this was date night with Nightcrawler, and this is what she chose to wear for it. Now I know she's a flight attendant, so I'll give her the benefit of the doubt and assume she was coming straight from work. But honestly, considering her outfits in subsequent years, I don't think anyone would ever confuse her with being a fashionista. If anything, I think her white blousey look from the cover of this issue is a much better selection than the green-on-green jacket dress combo she's got going on within it.
Panels.
So much goes into fulfilling the comic book experience that it's hard to pick a favorite panel based on just one criteria. Here are a few of my favorite mini moments that I either found cool, interesting, or funny in this issue. Number 6. Rogue using some antiquated technology. Who do you think she's listening to? Number 5. Cyclops sending Professor X a risque honeymoon photo of him and Madeline Pryor. Ooh la la. Number 4. Amanda unleashing some serious mystical energy on Pyro. Number 3. Kitty phasing into the taxicab nonchalantly and the driver's reaction. Number 2. Rogue offering Professor X an aspirin. And number 1, Rogue sees the professor's been shot and shouts, "Christmas!" My favorite panel overall this issue has got to be X-Men versus the Brotherhood. It looks like something epic is going down, and I love a floating destiny in the sky. My favorite noise in this issue goes to Blob's thwoom when he throws Amanda and Nightcrawler off balance. Just look at that thwoom. I'm feeling off balance myself.
Ads.
It's also fun to look at the old school ads from comic books back in the day. For this issue, I'd like to highlight the Spinning Garcia fishing rod. You can see how out of touch it is just by reading it. Ask Dad to help you buy it. What's wrong with Mom? Why can't she do it? I also just enjoy the visual of Santa ditching his traditional hat for this branded Garcia cap, and the big $1 million advertising at the top that has, as far as I can see, nothing to do with anything here. I wonder if this is still available.
X-Mail.
I never wrote into any X-Mail, but I always read the letters. Sometimes I wonder what became of these people. A favorite letter from this issue comes from Alan Klingenholtz of Barron, Wisconsin. He professes how icky the Morlocks make him feel, which is funny to me because if you consider the very mythos behind why the Morlocks scurry in the tunnels to begin with, his argument only promotes their cause all the more. Come on, Alan. Well, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I've said, and subscribe for more Great X-Mentations.